Hi, everybody. Welcome to your Wednesday market call. This is a weekly call put on by Home Advocates. Visit Home Advocates. Just type in 2 words, Home and Advocates. It'll take you right to the front page of our website. And you can find out more about joining us and getting all the bonus material that we constantly do on these calls. We make it specific to these calls. If you're watching this live on Facebook, there's a link down at the bottom. I believe on YouTube for that matter. So if you want to join us, we tend to do another 30 to 45 minutes after. And I believe today we're going to talk about mortgage rates and calculator mortgage, what I call an elevator pitch of explaining interest rate changes because they do bounce back and forth. As always, I'm joined by our broker friend and Chief Operating Officer, Fred Solomon. How are you, Fred?
Good morning, Lee. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Outstanding. As always, for those that are here live, go ahead and type in your questions. We're happy to take them and answer them along the way. We do this every Wednesday. This is sort of our wide open call to our bigger group. We do 3 days of coaching every single week. We've agreed now that once a month, exclusively for our coaching students on Thursday, we are going to start doing the TED Talk speaker series, not a big one. Maybe once a quarter, we'll do the big one like we did a week ago, the 3-hour event. We were lucky enough to have amazing people come in, and it was a great event. Make sure if you're a coaching student to get a few eyes on that. I'm very happy with the way that turned out overall, considering the amount of technical problems of trying to do it for the first time, but they will only get better. Yeah.
I got a great person for us, Lee.
All right.
You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh on this one. But the Aztec warrior, he runs around the stadium in his Aztec uniform at San Diego State. Well, he's one of the top realtors down there in San Diego. And he's
he already had me at, in his spare time, he runs around as an Aztec. And oh, by the way, he's a top realtor.
Isn't that genius? Like, think about it. Like, if you ever, you got to be unique and you got to be out there and you got to be as much of a public figure as possible, right?
Right.
So how about the guy that dresses up, and shows his abs and runs around the stadium with a spear in his hand. And the Aztecs do not know, they no longer.
Marvin knows who he is.
Yeah,
Carlos
right.
Gutierrez.
Yeah, that's exactly who he is. He's so well known down there. And I talked to him today and I said, Carlos, because he did a great video yesterday on open houses. And we were talking about open houses just the other day.
Yep. And
I said, would you be willing to come on and talk about how you do this? And it was a 2.5-minute video, and then go into detail about it. And he said, yes, he would. And I said, great. So I asked him to join us. And he's been the Aztec warrior for 30 years. So he is so well known in San Diego. It's ridiculous. So anyways, that's
a fun one.
Yeah.
The minute you said that, for people who know my history, I was thinking, oh, I should get the Call Me Maybe girl from Philadelphia who did the really bad lip sync Call Me Maybe. I think we used that on the first tour we all went out on again, because I just love doing the Call Me Maybe dance. Nothing like making another person famous for making a bad video. I wonder how often those types of videos get. I would be more interested in, did that produce? I'll tell you the truth. If I really had my way, even though she's in jail, I would love, and I mean this sincerely, for exactly all the wrong reasons, so don't get your political alignments out of order, I would like to talk to that realtor who stormed the Capitol and shot that video to hire her. I mean, yes, of course, she lost her license. And yes, of course, shooting that video basically put her in jail. But I want to know how much her phone rang right after that whole thing. like with actual clients from her area. I believe she was from Texas. I'm intrigued by all of that. I'm intrigued by good press, bad press, any press. For those of you who don't know, I did something with Danny Bonaducci back in 2007, and he lived by a very basic philosophy of there's no such thing as good press or bad press. There's only no press. I think no matter what you do, you're going, especially in this day and age. And I think this is the fear of most people who create content. You're afraid of the backlash of the content you create. You can never create content vanilla enough, which isn't really fair to vanilla. It's an extremely complex flavor, but it is, in this current culture, you can never create I'm telling you, I've done nothing but talk about one thing for the last 18 months, which is, hey, the sky is falling. This is really going to happen. I realize. And the amount of hate mail and people who stayed on my email list, these aren't people who like opted out, go away, go jump into, a helicopter fan type people. They stayed on my list, which is even crazier to me. I always check when somebody writes something very dramatic that starts off with you insert expletive. You're just trying to scare people and make money, which is not the case. I am not Don Quixote trying to charge windmills here. That isn't my goal. My goal, and by the way, in my line of work for people who are real estate coaches and real estate marketers, there are very few that stay very, how do I say this? Stay very positive when it comes to getting agents to take actions to join their programs or to be coached by them. The number one tactic in almost all of real estate marketing from this side, not actually doing real estate and actually real estate as well, is a fear movement, right? The point of what we were talking about yesterday and the point of what we're talking about again today is knowledge reduces fear. I know Terrell's going to like that one, but knowledge reduces fear. And that's kind of the core topic we've been on this week. But the reality is people are afraid when they don't know, right? So if you're selling, I keep talking about it, this TikTok video for real estate agents course that keeps popping up in my timeline psychotically. I see it now all the time, and I realize I'm talking into an open mic. I realize I've got a YouTube page open and a Facebook page open. So I am going to get this ad even more into my loop. And it's people ask me all the time to get attention. What kind of background should I have to have people watch my TikTok videos? Well, if you're not, and the next words are, if you're not doing it this way, then you're doing it wrong. That's not true. If people watch it, it works. Doesn't really matter. Which brings up another ad that I wanted to, before we jump into the actual news and what's going on and kind of bring everybody up from yesterday. Rocket Mortgage, Fred, have you seen their latest ad?
No.
Well, Rocket Mortgage is flying around the old interwebs and saying, hey, you shouldn't be renting right now. You should be buying. And we've got all kinds of programs, no matter what kind of credit you have. And in just a very short time, you can refinance to a lower rate.
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
even joking about that. This is a
hate-
real Rocket ad that's running right now.
So I hate that sales pitch more than anything, because
More than equity, more than taking out HELOCs.
No, HELOCs are smart, because you do not want, I think in fact, it's so funny you should say that. I just wrote a post about HELOCs this morning on my Facebook wall. And I talked about that because so many people want to take, and you know what? I'll just read you a text message that I got at 9:20 this morning. Good morning, Fred. My name is Nick. You helped me about a year ago refinance my home. Thanks again. sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if I could ask your expert opinion, if you would be so kind. HELOC versus refinance. Oh my God, I get this question all the time. HELOC versus refinance. My mother-in-law needs some emergency work done on her home and wanted to refi and get some money for repairs. We weren't sure if that's a smart idea right now. Thanks. I said, hey, Nick, I'll call you around 10:45. I'm in a Zoom call. No problem. Thank you. Okay. So I'm just letting you know that these Rocket people and all these other lenders that are out there, they do not do what is very, very, very important. And I'm going to show you, since we're on the topic right now, I'm going to show you something that is so important that you need to know. And I want you to bring this up on your computer screen if you can.
Absolutely. Let me
So
switch over.
I put a link in there
There
in
we
the
go.
chat box.
Hold on, let me share screen.
Click on that link, because this is what separates the men from the boys.
There we go.
And it's so important. Okay, so what you need to do, this is called a combined rate calculator. And what the combined rate calculator does is that it tells you whether you should refinance the first or leave it alone. Because the question was, I need cash. Should I touch the first mortgage? So you put the current balance in there for the first mortgage and you put the current rate. And then you put the amount needed on the line of credit, how much cash they want out, and you put that in box number 2, and then you put the rate. And then you hit calculate. And if you do that, it will tell you what the combined rate is. So if the combined rate is 7.4% and new interest rates on a first mortgage today are 6.5%, then yes, it would make sense to do a first mortgage. However, if the combined rate is lower than what you could get on a first mortgage, guess what? It doesn't make sense to change the first mortgage. It only makes sense to get a home equity line of credit. Now, people won't tell you this because they're in the business to generate revenue for their families. And their goal is to get the money, to close loans. That's what these, Rocket Mortgage type companies, and they overcharge considerably. I mean, considerably overcharge. I get loan estimates from these guys all the time, and I see how much they charge, and I save them. So when I go on camera and I record something, I can protect myself and say, hey, look, on this day, on July 31st, there's no 32 days in a month, Lee, just last time I checked.
Well, if
But
you want the bank, wait, I'm going to give a banking answer. There are always 31 days in every single month. And it's the 31st day at 5 p.m. to become the first. So 6 o'clock on the 31st day, every 31 days, if you can believe that craziness with the way banks operate.
You're in default.
You're in default. 5:01 p.m. technically.
So basically I try to help people make smart financial decisions. This combined rate calculator is the best thing that you can use in order to determine if it makes sense to refinance the first mortgage. These are tools that I use, tools that create trust, because I tell them at one of my, if you click on calculator and tools on the left-hand side, all the way, keep going down, and right there, you just passed it.
Why is it not in alphabetical order?
I don't know. Okay,
right.
Humans may lie, but the mortgage calculator does not. Right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the deal. That's how I feel about helping people make smart decisions. So you just need, go back up to the calculator and rate calculator at the top of the page in the middle. Okay.
Or the mortgage calculator. Wow, it's Java. Look at you. That's a throwback.
Yeah, my website's old.
HTML. I'll get you a
It
person.
needs, it needs some updating, but the point is I use this rate calculator all the time. And the other thing that I talked about today, and I think it's also very applicable to what's going on in the market, is if you could go to my Facebook page real quick.
I am. I'm heading over there as you speak.
Yep. And then go to the first post that the second post, because I'm streaming the live thing there. The second post, oh wait, sorry, one more after that. Okay, stated income in the lending business means no tax returns. Stated income today is way different than stated income before 2010. You have to provide 3, 6, 9, 12, or 24 months worth of bank statements to support your income. Self-employed borrowers need to be smart for the next 2 years because of where this crazy economy is possibly going. They say history repeats itself, so we shall see how high these rates go. For the sake of the housing market and our economy, I hope they get inflation under control. Otherwise, look out below for housing prices, which is great for cash buyers, but who knows how high these interest rates will go. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you should consider having access to cash, especially if you are self-employed. The last time we had a bad recession, lenders froze credit cards and home equity lines of credit. I am strongly recommending that people get lines of credit on their homes while the equity is still there, and hopefully lenders don't freeze them again. If you qualify with full documentation, there are lenders that are still doing home equity lines of credit with zero cost, except an annual fee of approximately $75. However, the question I've been getting asked a lot is what happens if I don't qualify with my tax returns? Can I still get a HELOC? Well, we have a solution for you, even if it's on an investment property. These are not cheap, and now more than ever, you need to have an emergency reserve if you don't have cash saved in the bank to deal with this economy. If you'd like to have access to some cash and you don't qualify with a full conventional documentation loan, I have a solution for you. This will help a lot of people and businesses that suffered during the recession. Pay attention to the jobs report on Friday because it's a big market mover, especially this time around. And oh, by the way, PSA announcement. The best time to qualify for these home loans, these HELOCs, is when you don't need the money. Most people call you when they need the money, when they should have called you 6 months earlier when they didn't need the money, and they could have qualified much easier. Be smart. There are people predicting an everything bubble. Who knows if they're right or not, but please do your part and be smart. Don't say I didn't warn you.
There you go.
Now,
And you got likes.
yeah,
We haven't gotten to the comments yet.
it's okay. This is so important that I think everybody, even realtors, should be telling people to go to their local banks and get home equity lines of credit, especially if they're self-employed and especially while they still have equity. It's a public service announcement. Everybody should be putting this on their Facebook wall, something like what I just wrote. Because if you don't have access to cash and home prices come down, and you're going to be doing a short sale if you bought 1 or 2 years ago, well, at least in the last 12 months, right?
Right.
You need to educate your clients on how important it is to have access to cash, especially if they don't have it in their bank accounts. And they, let's say they have a 401k or an IRA and they're not 59 years old, and you got to go in there and take money out of your 401k and pay all those capital gains and early term, early pay withdrawal fees, 10%, right? If you take it out of your IRA or your 401k, do yourself a favor and tell your clients to go get home equity lines of credit. And the time to do it is when they can afford and when they can qualify, not when they need the money. That's not the time to be applying for a mortgage. That's not the time. You need to do it when you don't need the money. You need to have a credit card, an emergency fund. This is your best advice to your clients at this time. And even though you're not a mortgage guy, you're giving them good advice, and it involves their house. And that's what makes you the expert. That's what makes you the person that they want to come seek advice from when they need it, and be that person. So this is one way to establish that type of relationship.
There you go. And there's your quick update on all of that. Let's go back to screen share, get you guys all caught up on your news, and we'll take questions from the room. I mean, I'm sure everybody saw it yesterday in their email. I copied Fred's post, right? And I used that for the core of the email that I sent out yesterday. I've said it once, I will say it a million times. If you see good content that's evergreen, reuse it. I don't know why more people don't. I really don't.
Yeah. And you can borrow anything that I write. I don't care. You can share it, you can copy and paste it on you can be the author of it. It does not affect me one bit. I just want people it's to help people. That's why I do that. It's to help people.
For sure. For sure. Let's go back to a screen share and get you guys caught up on all of the news for you guys. Let's, as always, let me insert gratuitous commercial right here. Go to Home Advocates. Just click on Home Advocates Coaching and click on Get Started, and you can get involved in the program. The video on the Get Started page is brand new. If you're a part of this group, there has been an email floating around to let you guys upgrade before we launch our monthly program, which is going to happen here shortly. I'm in the finishing stages of doing that. They are totally separate programs. People in the Platinum group have access to me to help them talk to their clients. Beyond that, they have exclusive content. They get their own leads. There's a lot going on with all of that. So that'll be coming out shortly. I kind of know now, after looking at what's going on in the current news cycle, what everybody's waiting for. And it goes back to the banks yet again, which always kind of amuses me. But let's jump into what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. About 2 days ago, Fred, there was something that came out. Well, I don't have a subscription. Are they going to make me buy the subscription? I hate news making me buy subscriptions. Really, I find it irritating. There was a report that came out that's projecting another 20% in declines, which caused Fortune, Wall Street Journal, most of the major news. And I actually have another story further down from mortgage on applications and mortgages. So let's take it in order. Mortgage applications went down 14.2%. They're projecting 20% loss in valuation. And let's just start right there. Those are the primaries that most of, if not all, the major media news outlets, like the New York Post, right? And again, the keyword of using the recession, they're all going to reuse the same stuff. And they're reusing the same information repeatedly in every single story. I love the fact that the New York Post is actually now going back to a Michael Burry story. By the way, this is at least 3 months ago when Burry kind of warned everybody to get out of the market. But again, we've talked about this repeatedly. If you're a regular, consistent person who shows up on these calls, you'll know that we've watched the media trend occur on these topics, right? So everything starts, it's right now we're moving at a quarter to quarter cycle. It's what it feels like to me, Fred, right? We knew the 20%, we knew applications were down. Mortgage Banker Association last Wednesday put out their report. There was another key report that came out. Who did they quote? The 20% was quoted by, I want to say it's like Realty Tracker, Zillow, or one of those, but they put out a press release. So let's start right there. Does it feel like it's about 3 months worth of a cycle to you right now? Everybody's about 3 months behind right now.
Well, we were, when we were talking about prices coming down, we were saying it's going to start when they, when they get rid of the moratorium, which was October of last year, right? So at the time that we were saying all those things, it wasn't a trendy topic. We were
right, because you're in the quarter before it. So if we break it down by quarters, the first quarter, everything is still wonderful and rosy. The second quarter of this year is where we started to, as you look at the lag, we're going into the increase in foreclosure activity and everything else, and the housing recession start. In Q3, people picked up on that and went that direction. Now we're going into Q4, where now the push is definitely about the housing recession, right? They're not talking about an overall market recession. But I think the key word, if I was looking at it from, and we talked about this yesterday, can't stress it enough, watch that video, when I went out and started to meet people, right? That whole recession thing is really important. That key word, they don't know. I don't believe that the average homeowner or renter knows the difference between a housing recession and a market recession. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what, but the word recession is repeatedly coming up. I mean, just repeatedly coming up, Fred. It's being slammed into everyone's face, which is why they're trying to change. We talked about this earlier, trying to change the definition on market recession, right? And they're trying to force feed housing recession. In fact, when you type in housing recessions, you get the New York Post story, you get Realtor.com stories, right? Home prices, even if there isn't a recession. That's about as politically correct as it gets, Fred. We're in a housing recession, even if there isn't a recession. What does that even mean? I mean, I understand what it means semantically, but if I'm a common person, right, and I'm looking at this on YouTube or Facebook, I go back to what Steve Hawks said. The reason homeowners don't want to lower their prices, the reason a lot of people are constantly, I'm starting to see it with red people, right? Where houses are now on the market for 60 days. Not saying they're not still selling at those top prices. They're just taking twice as long. Well, that's not going to last forever. And again, another point or a half point uptick, we see what that does to mortgage applications. We can look at this very simplistically. Okay. They're dropping to a 25-year low. This is 3 hours ago, Fred. We're at a 25-year low on mortgage applications. That seems like a precursor to me. If you put all the pieces together, I'm not trying to do some kind of who shot Kennedy and putting string around the room to tie these all together. They're all the same thing. They're all having an effect on each other. And I'm going to make my boldest prediction yet. We will be in a physical recession for as long as we're in a housing recession. Yeah, there's one, Fred. You like that one? Because here's the fact. This entire market, from everything I've seen, since the day they handed out that first, I feel like I should be on camera for this so we can come back to it. I'm gonna make this a very bold prediction. Even though predicting a 7% interest rate was probably the bolder move of the year. I never
And it
project.
was spot on because we just hit it.
Yeah. Well, now we can
Just
shoot
hit
for
it.
my 8 before the end of the year. I'm excited about that. I'm like in 9 for next year personally, but we'll see what they do. So here we go with the next Lee Honish prediction. This entire recession, market recession, is directly tied to the housing market. Our number one appreciating product from my perspective over the last couple of years since COVID has been real estate. Since they turned money into zero, people dumped all their money into real estate as fast as they could and bought up inventory. And as that market completely declines, I am telling you, all the other markets are going to decline as well. They will. You'll be able to map these bad boys out at the very end of it. Go ahead, Fred.
So last recession that we had, 2008, 9, 10, 11, and 12, what caused the problem, what caused everybody to go into a recession was those ninja loans and 1% and all those option arm loans, stated income loans, 100% financing loans, all those types of loans where you didn't have to qualify with your income and you could literally just walk away because you didn't put any money down. And just the only thing that happens is you have a foreclosure on your credit report, right? That's what got us into the last recession. What got us out of the last recession? Lower rates. 2011 and 12, we had the lowest rates in history at that time. I remember telling my dad, Dad, I think that's the last time we're ever going to do business together. And this was in 2011 or 12. And I remember calling my dad up a year ago or so. And I said, Dad, can you believe that we got you 2.875 on a 15-year back in 2011? Can you believe that you can do 1.875 today? Like 1% lower. Can you believe that? Yeah. And he goes, I'm not going through the paperwork. Forget it. It's not that important to me. I can pay the house off if I wanted to, right? But that was his response. And the point is that that's what got us in and out of the recession. It's the same. The housing is the number one thing that drives the economy. It just is. And that's what they're saying is a housing recession. Come on, the GDP is net. Look at the definition of the word GDP. And as much as the Fed wanted to change the definition, or whoever was trying to change the definition of the word recession, it got out all over the news. Every news reporter was saying it's not a recession. Well, look, by definition, it is, because we had negative GDP. Oh, well, the GDP has to be lower than the previous quarter in order for it to be a recession. So even though the GDP is negative, it wasn't as negative as the first quarter. So therefore, we're just in a housing recession. What? Well, oh my God. I'm really, seriously? I mean, come on. Who are you trying to fluff? We all know what fluffers do.
Yeah. It is hot air and sunshine at this moment. And now it's bleeding into the local, markets, right? So now they're all looking for it. So now Redfin, well, they're using Redfin data. Interesting. Here's one for Seattle, because I know that we have someone on the call from that area. So I like to take care of all my people. There you go, Eric. You guys are making your local news. But this was to end out this particular section. This is the one that was a little more interesting to me. And this goes back to my banker days. So for those of you who don't know, everywhere else in the country, LA extended their COVID evictions until February, but it's going to end. This is official, right? So it's now turned into a much bigger problem, right? They did everything they can do. So I've said this a million times. Banks and servicers don't operate state by state. They don't operate they don't operate by one set of protocols. They work by for each state. They work by one protocol for the entire country. Like, you don't have time at a call center to teach people the difference between, California rules or LA County rules and the way Vegas operates. Vegas has a completely different set of rules than, say, Florida. So they sort of do this amalgamation of very basic real estate practices. And I fundamentally believe that this LA County COVID eviction protection for renters as well as homeowners is what is really delaying the deluge of approximately 3 to 4% of evictions. So it's kind of stressful on that level. And I'm starting to believe that this is the bigger problem on what's taking so long. And the election. I don't think it would have been great for the midterms for either party to have a massive amount of evictions right around it. Now, right after that election in November, you could certainly see a lot of movement. And it also takes us to, the difference between third quarter numbers and fourth quarter numbers. So first quarter numbers, everything is still fine. Second quarter, things are getting a little worse. We're just finishing the third quarter, and whoa, we're going down by 20% for next year. Like, everybody's completely changed from Q3 2021 dramatically. Like, it's such a night and day difference of the way that these exact same sources have changed their predictions or the projections. The what?
Their tune.
Yeah.
The song that they're singing.
Yeah, they have changed their tune completely. Q3 of 2021 is nothing, like nothing. And even the National Association has been lowering what they think price appreciation will be. So what will price appreciation be by the end of the year? They'll do year to date is what they'll do. We appreciated by 4% for 2022. It's not a down market, or it'll be something like that. They'll physically adjust the numbers to tell a story that NAR doesn't want a housing recession. That is not a good word. I guarantee they are against that terminology. And if you look at their reports, they're doing everything in their power to not use those words. But we're 20% in most markets year over year, Fred. I mean, that's crazy point of perspective to go into Q4.
Well, whatever it is, whatever it's going to be, there are still classic lines that still make sense. And, the baby boomers saw their parents lose properties to foreclosure. That's what they saw. They saw that happen in the United States. And there was a lot of articles being written, not the baby boomers, the kids that are now 30 and Gen Z, Gen Y,
Millennial, Gen Z, Gen Y,
yeah,
right.
And they were concerned there for a while. I remember seeing these types of articles in 2017, 18, and 19 in that area, right around that time. And they're like, are these people going to buy houses? And they were analyzing who was buying houses back then, right? And then during 20 and 21, we saw these houses go to crazy astronomical levels that we never have predicted. And there was a time when we were all saying, you know, can you believe it's going to cost $1 million for a regular house in LA or a regular house in Orange County? Can you
In
believe that?
Vegas,
Well,
in Vegas, that's crazy to me.
the time has come. That time has already come. You know, I mean, I don't
Well,
even
and
want to get into some of the values of the home. Go ahead.
no, well, and that goes back to what we talked about yesterday, just talking to regular people with regular jobs here on a Saturday night in Vegas that are employees, right? They're afraid that MGM is laying people off, right? Preparing for the recession, the market. I guess you got to qualify them now. The market recession. It's why you see big companies out here shifting into construction mode and laying off employees. It's probably, I would hate to go out on a limb. It might even be more cost effective to build more new resorts if you are station casinos and shut down some of your older, locations with the employees and the lack of business that they had coming out of COVID. I'm sure they looked at the cost analysis to break that all down before they started tearing down casinos out here, which they're doing at an alarmingly high rate. I mean, station casinos closed a bunch of their locations and have started this complete transformation into resort style properties. But it's having that conversation one-on-one with, do you know what's going on with your equity? Do you know what's going on with your savings? Do you know what's going on with your housing situation? Are you looking in the near future? I know this for myself. Upgrading my house after only being in this place for a short period of time, I'm getting a better deal. I'm getting a better deal in a bigger house just a couple of months after being in this place, right? So why wouldn't I take it? If I have the ability to hopscotch and somebody who's got, and this particular landlord has a very forward-thinking mind, I'll take a lease for 2 years at that number. I'm all about it. I will all day long. I was actually shocked by the number, the size of the house, when everybody else is. Now we're seeing high rises and the bigger condos here in Vegas starting to have issues. Like, you need to be aware of your market and having these discussions with people and then taking it out onto the street. And I will close this section with this for sure. As long as you see Zillow still on the decline, Compass going out of business in real time for all of you to watch, EXP still down, Toll Brothers down, KB Homes down, and the big bad asset manager of them all, BlackRock, still down, right? You're talking about a company that had a 52-week high of close to $1,000 a share and are still remarkably right around their 52, their low of 543. They're still hovering in the fives. How are you going to explain that at the end of the year to the investors or the people that are a part of this portfolio that invest money, right? This is year to date. I mean, it's not hard for even an unsavvy investor to run a 5-year cycle and go, uh-oh, that doesn't look right to me, right? They're going back, and I keep saying it, they're going back to pre-pandemic numbers. They just are. They just are. And the real estate market itself back in, pre-pandemic wasn't all that great anyway. It was just a very average market. And you can look at, again, all of these, you can look at them all the same way. They all mirror each other prior to the pandemic. They all have this weird little spike where they were making deals. They kind of saw what was happening. Some of them made moves. But generally speaking, almost everybody was on the same kind of whatever curve. They were just Real estate was very flat before the pandemic. Then we had a pandemic. Then we had free money. And then everybody went through the roof. Okay. Everybody has the drop. And then everybody hits a spike. And they all reach their record highs of what they had. I would like to know what's going to happen as a shareholder who bought in somewhere back in here watching this climb. When are they going to want their money back? When are they going to call it due? What? These are very big. These are publicly traded companies. Okay. Even EXP. What an incredible run. They were dead as a board. The pandemic killed for EXP World Holdings. Oh my gosh. Metaphorically speaking, I apologize not to be offensive, but they were flat. And then the market blew up. And then they were trying to find ways of increasing markets and increasing share. And they've been on the decline. No difference. Compass had its day. I mean, they did okay. They got all the way up to $20 a share, which for a startup, that's phenomenal, right? But it's been a slow decline the rest of the way. Zillow, we already know the story on Zillow. They made all their money, then they got out of Dodge. They just did it before everybody else. And what they're trying to do is plateau at pre-pandemic numbers. And they're not that far off, Fred. They really aren't. I think their greatest fear was getting left holding the bag, looking at their historic numbers and trying to explain it to shareholders. They also wound up buying Trulia. I mean, they're very smart. They're very smart. And they played the game very well. And if they've laid off employees, if they've reduced their purchasing, they go money heavy. Zillow's coming out on the other side of this as your new platform for everybody to go to still, yet again, for the foreseeable future of the place with the quick offer, because they'll do it again. They'll be the place to go to where you want to find a listing. They will continue to maintain their market position because of the very radical moves they made back here to get their stock back to where it was prior to the pandemic. That's where they wanted to be. They wanted to be right around $50 a share. They're a little low because the market's low. They're going to be hovering first right at their previous market share. And I guarantee that's the story they're pitching in investor meetings. We knew it was going to go back to where it was prior to the pandemic. It's the short-sightedness of everyone else not to see that that's the direction we're going. So if you want to know where your market is and where your market's going, it's a very simple thing. Take any city that you work in, go check out about a month after, where's that really nice sweet spot? When did they really start doing free money? So they did it within the first few months. So the peak for them, we'll use their number. So just go pull February 2021 for any one of your markets. Okay. It's about 18 months ago. That is the peak of the peak of the peak of the peak. Usually in most markets. Go take a look at that number. What was the average sales price? Then all you got to do is rewind it to about a month before the pandemic. I'd say 1 year previously, February 2020. That's about what your average market should be. You can see it in every stock price. Okay, they all did about the same thing. Some are a little more volatile than others. I get it. But when you're talking about somebody like BlackRock, where they're about at stability, they're getting back real quick to their old numbers. They will. They'll be right back here. They're in the sweet spot, somewhere between $400 and $500 a share, right? They had their run. And their pitch at those meetings, even though they're losing 50% of their stock value, right, is going to remain the same. That's just a very simple asset management discussion. So if I were talking to a homeowner right now, tell me if I'm wrong, Fred. Do you know what your home's value was in February of 2020, Fred? Plus or minus?
They may or may not know. Maybe. Do I know? But yeah, I know what mine was.
Okay, what was yours February 2020?
Oh, My,
Just a round figure.
I would say 400.
And what is the current value of your property?
It got up to 1.2 by building a pool.
Right. So
Now
the
it's
next
now-
easy discussion would be, are
Now-
those numbers starting to decline month over month from your perspective?
Yeah, it's
Because
worth
your
about-
market would seem to indicate that. The housing stock market would seem to indicate it. The market recession would seem to indicate it, that number is going down. So, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, right? Do we want to see it go all the way back to 400,000 before you take action?
Oh, I don't think it's going that low.
Well, no,
You're
not
just-
for
you're
you,
just
because you put a
negative.
pool
You're
in.
just
I mean, you
negative.
did upgrades, Fred. There's a huge difference on your place,
No,
right?
you're just negative. You're just negative. You don't know what you're talking about. How
Well,
can you say that my property value is going to come down from 1 point? That's what you're going to hear.
oh
from
yeah,
me.
no, completely. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I didn't catch that, but you're right, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. I am being negative, but I can also look at everybody involved in real estate going back to that February of 2020 figure. It's actually very easy for me to show you where the spikes were, where everybody made money, because these are publicly traded companies who do real estate. So I can show you physically that if you look back to 2020, it's going to be right around that price. And I can show you, I mean, I'm an old school guy, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. I like a piece of paper and a pen. And by the way, I've done this in asset management meetings. And by the way, this is how you project forward value when you're trying to figure out what the price of a property is going to be 6 months from today. The data for your market is showing a 20% decline year over year. So let's just do some simple math. How long at 20% before you're back to 400,000, Mr. Solomon?
So this is where I would pull out that message that we sent to everybody yesterday. And I would say, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that prices do not come down for your sake and for my sake. Because God forbid either one of us get into a terrible financial situation and we would be forced to sell when prices come down. God forbid. So what we need to do is we need to protect our position. And we need to protect our position when we don't need the money. So number one, Mr. Homeowner, I would recommend that you get a home equity line of credit. That's the first thing that I would recommend.
Well, you're just
to
trying
you.
to sell me an equity line. Aren't those things like
No, I
15
don't
or
make a penny.
20%?
Look, I don't, Mr. Homeowner, they're free. They don't cost anything. I don't make a home. I don't make a penny off of you for doing this. I would refer you to my bank and you can either get one or you can say, Fred, you're an idiot. You have no clue what you're talking about. Take my idea and throw it in the trash can, rip up all your credit cards because credit card companies charge way too much. They all want your money and they're just gonna, try to do whatever they can and take all your assets from you if you don't pay them. Do whatever you want. I'm just here to give you a suggestion. You can take my suggestion and say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Or you can take my suggestion and throw it in the trash can. Either way, I sleep good at night because I know that I'm telling you the sky is blue. I know that I'm telling you 2 + 2 is 4. And I know that I'm telling you I have a swimming pool in my backyard. Those are things that I know. And I know you should have a home equity line of credit, especially in a recession. And especially if you lose your job. And especially, hopefully, they don't freeze them like they did last time. And then the other thing I would say to them is, look, we got to look at the default and foreclosure data. We got to look at the affordability. We got to look at what's happening to people's jobs. We got to look at the inflation and the recession data. We got to look at the population growth, the income, the inventory levels, the sales volume. We got to look at all of those items to determine what's going to happen to prices in your neighborhood. And God forbid, I hope they don't come down. And I hope that nothing tragic happens in your family, my family, everybody's family. But God forbid, I hope that doesn't happen. and I hope that you're protected. And that's when we get into what's your financial situation like? Do you have IRAs, 401ks? Do you have emergency funds? Do you have access to cash? Because we are going into a potentially dangerous time. And that's how I feel. That's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right, don't say I didn't tell you.
There you go.
That's how I deal with those kind of, and I speak firmly with these people. I really do, because you know, everybody has their own approach, but I'm a, you know, I don't change when I'm talking to a client. I don't change my tone that much, but they respect my opinion, and I'll get text messages like, I would like to know your expert opinion. That's the kind of messages I get. I don't ask them to text that and write that out. That's what they say to me. And so I feel that it's my job to give them my expert opinion. And to the same advice I would tell my mom, my dad, my brother, my best friends. That's the same advice I give to all my clients. And then I tell all the people starting off in this industry, I tell them, do that for 20 or 30 years like I've done it, and then come sit by my desk and see how often my phone rings, or how many text messages I get, or how many emails people send me asking me to do business with me again. It happens every day. I get the messages every day. And it's because people know that I genuinely care about their well-being and what they should do. And that's why I wrote that post today on getting an equity line. So that's what I think everybody should do. Get an equity line of credit. Every home in America should have one. That is my personal, strong opinion, especially a recessionary economy. You need to have access to cash. You just do. All right, that's my.
Nice job. Hold on. Let me do a quick screen share. I just realized that this is in the archive. Share screen. We'll go back to this one last time. Then we'll take questions here from the group. As always, go to homeadvocates.io. Can't remember that. Just type in 2 words, Home Advocates. Take you right to the front page. Coaching students, everybody pay attention, or those interested in joining the program, click on where it says Home Advocates Coaching. It will take you over to our coaching page. Here you can click on Get Started, and you can join our program today, and I guarantee you will have face-to-face appointments next week. Guaranteed. Nobody else does that. Guaranteed. Now, for those of you in the program, you guys already know this. You log in and you go to My Library, correct? In My Library, you will have 3 topics, right? The explanation of the group with training, the community page, and the hub. On the hub, there is the Monster Marketing System, where I guarantee your face-to-face results, the testimonial business cards, which I'm going to update with the tap card information later today, coaching call, archives, access to our express buyers and the people that we have as investors. If you're an investor in our program and you want suggestions on how to operate your deal, you submit it. I'll review it. I will give you my perspective. What I want to talk about is the archives, which I just realized it was here. If you click on the archives, this is a collection of everything that we've kind of accrued. My God, I've used up the storage in this too. Unbelievable, Fred. And you go to, we have tools to do probate. We have all the original packages through AMS, through Monster, to stuff I created in 2010 and 11. And if you go inside these folders, you will see lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of documents, including the original version of the Monster marketing pieces themselves. within there is a document for putting home prices in. It's a value dispute form. I just thought about it during this whole call. This is a value dispute, Fred. If I had somebody right now, it'd be a value dispute, no different than a bank. Why wouldn't I do the Excel spreadsheet routine with these are the houses right around you that are comparable? Feel free to drive around and take a look at them. And here is the projection of where they started and where they're going. Here's how many days on the market they are. We can look at that percentage. In fact, I'm intrigued to change that. I'm going to do an updated form this week where you can put in, 3 to 5 properties, the number of days they've been on the market, where they were active, where they were pending, when they were, what they were sold for. You can see the percentage they're losing in your neighborhood with a value dispute. I think that would have a lot of power. Am I wrong for thinking that, Fred?
Well, that's exactly what I do with every homeowner before I even accept their listing and before they tell me, well, what do you think it's worth, Fred?
I made you a nice little Excel spreadsheet. Here you go.
Well,
can walk
no, I get them in my car and we go in and out of every listing available for sale in their neighborhood. And I ask them a simple question when I'm done. What place did your house come in? And what do you think it's worth? And then before I ask them that question, I write down on a piece of paper what I think what I think their value is, and I fold it up. And as soon as they answer that question of what do they think it's worth, I open up my piece of paper and I tell them, here's what I think it's worth. And then we
Okay.
discuss it.
Yep.
And then we have the question, what do you want to list it for?
But again, this goes back to what we discussed yesterday. How do we simplify that for agents that aren't as experienced with having those discussions, right? How do we make that transition easier?
Well, I don't think it, here's the great thing
It
about,
shouldn't be that tough a discussion.
no, listen, this is the analogy that I use. When you go and buy a car, you look at 10 different cars. You don't buy the first car that you see. One has a better color, one has a better paint job, one has less dents, one has less miles. You look at all 10 cars and then you get a really good idea of what they're worth. Now, you can also go to Auto Trader and cars.com and all these other different websites that are out there. And you can go look and see what the price ranges are for all those types of vehicles that you're looking to buy. And it has a wide variety, sometimes 20% difference between the high and the low. And you can see real quick what those cars are worth. But it's like dating websites. You got to go and meet them in person to see if they match the pictures that they're throwing up on the internet. And the same thing with cars and the same thing with open houses.
Yes, I agree. And it's funny that Donald brings this up. Active listings do not indicate market value. That's 100% incorrect. I was trained by one of the best appraisers in California, and actives, absolutely. Actives and pendings. It's the solds that don't. It's actives and pendings. And in this market, if I've got an active property for $500,000 next door to my house and it's been on the market for 60 days, tells me, don't want to break it to anybody, if I'm doing fair market value, that house next door, which is like and comparable that I have been in, broken bread with, and know it has the exact same kind of floor as my house, right? And it's been on the market for 60 days at $500,000. It's going to tell me that the fair market value is a lot less than $500,000.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Lee.
Pending is the trick, and getting the pending number is always tough. That's always the bigger gimmick. You've got to massage that out of the agent. And I understand legal disclosure for each state. And as a state certified trainer in multiple states, please check with your broker, consultant, CPA, attorney, mom, dad, or your priest before you take any advice with me for your particular state.
I like the priest.
It's new this year. I'm throwing priest in from now on, just so nobody has any idea. You're affecting my religious beliefs with the advice you're giving. No, I told you to ask your priest. this time. I'm adding that for 2023.
That's
So
awesome.
the
And you
point to
say it
that
so
statement is,
eloquently.
and I know this for a fact on the last listing that we had here in Vegas, right? You're snake bit at 60 days and you've been stuck at that number and you're offering incentives. You've lowered the price. Nobody's touching it. Guess what? It's affecting fair market value in that entire track, day by day, second by second. And all I'm saying is that if it were me and I was trying to get somebody off the fence about understanding where their value is, especially if they've missed a payment, here's where we are. Here's where we were at the beginning of the year, right? Which arguably you could just use by default December of 2021 as your default peak location and then rewind it back to, you know, if you want to show that progression, but look back 1 year. I'm going to take a wild guess, excluding Orange County and South Florida. Manhattan's like, we're talking year over year. Show them the 18% depreciation. Most of you are averaging it. I know because I saw it in the media. We're averaging close to 20% depreciation nationally. I'm not saying your market is 20%, but it's 5% or maybe 10%. It's not that hard to figure out.
So
You're
I'll
just
tell you,
showing them the depreciation rate.
I have a live example. Regina calls me or texts me, and she says, Fred, blah, blah, blah. So we try to get the client a reverse mortgage. I just found out yesterday that reverse mortgage lenders will no longer do loans on reverse mortgages if the
You're just
homeowner
trying to
is in.
scare me, Fred. You're just trying to scare me.
Oh no, I learned this the hard way yesterday. I always was under
it's
the
all real.
impression, under the impression that you could get a reverse mortgage if you're in default.
Yeah, I had, and by the way, it doesn't make you naive for thinking this. I thought reverse AMs were about as easy as getting a HELOC. If you got equity in a heartbeat, you win.
Well, guess what? It's not true. This client would need to bring their arrearage current, all the amount that they're in arrears, in order for the lender to be able to do a reverse mortgage. So this client now that Regina has to sell their home. They are under the impression, I mean, talking to this guy was like another Liam, except he was even worse than Liam, this guy, believe it or not. Liam, they were both smart guys, but this guy was playing the race card, and he was playing the robo signing card,
Of
and
course,
I'm like,
of course.
robo signing was 10, 11 years ago. And I go, when's the last time you made a payment? Oh, 11 years ago. And I'm like, you can't possibly think that you're going to be able to keep your house.
He's a countrywide loan from 11 years ago that fell through the B of A cracks, continued not to make payments I already know the story. Didn't continue to make payments, gets flipped over to B of A and lost in the cracks. Then falls into the COVID categories after still not making payments, comes out of the other side to find out, oh, I'm first in line on foreclosures. And he's still fighting the system?
So
wow. And by the way,
yeah.
How close was I on that whole story?
Oh, you're very, very spot on. You're very spot on. And Regina's not with us, unfortunately, to comment on this, but I was explaining to Regina, and I'm going to read some text messages that I texted her yesterday and today, because I think this is so true of so many people that are in default. So here, let me just, okay. So I said, now he needs to sell, and that's not what he wants to hear. If you need any more help with him, let me know. I'm happy to try to talk some more sense into him. I was nice and I was firm, and I was using examples like, have you ever been to the principal's office? They were nice to you. Have you ever been pulled over by a police officer. They were nice to you. License and registration, please. They still want your license and registration, right? They're going to go back to the car. They're going to input your license number on their little computer that they got in their car. And if you have a warrant, you're going to jail, right?
Right.
Whatever. So, and she's all, thanks, Fred. I will be firm and professional with him, because we had this conversation. This was Regina's response. And I said, good idea. And when he starts going off on tangents, remind him to stay focused. Got it. This Regina response, got it. The more he puts it off, he will be overwhelmed with stress. And I said, this is one guy I would not help because he doesn't want to leave. And when I say not help, I mean financially. I will help him, but I'm not going to offer the same thing that I would offer to Liam. And she goes, right. He is the type who will wait until the last minute. And I said, all of his actions will be based on staying in the home as long as possible. If the home needs a little TLC, they won't do what's necessary to keep it clean or fix it up. Tough situation to deal with. Motivated to be unmotivated, even though they know what is the best move. And she goes, yes, Fred, I'm taking it one day at a time. I said, that's the best approach. And she says, yes, he thinks that his family will step in. We shall see. And I said, tell him if they don't, that you still should put a for sale sign on that property in case they don't have the amount needed for the arrearage. And she said, got it. Thanks.
You want to know the really staggering part to this that probably bothers me the most? This guy was probably a short sale at some point. He's now got equity and he's now going to sleep on that equity. He just wants to live there for free.
Well, you know, a lot of these people feel entitlement and feel that they're owed things because of something that happened a long time ago.
What did the bank do to you? Right. We go back to, we really do go back to the start of 2010 when we talked about working with defaulted people. And again, these media influences and all of these things are going to have an effect on the people you talk to. All of these things are going to affect the outcome. They're all going to feel entitled. The minute a news story pops up about we're going to reset FICO scores, we're not going to report negative credit for people who get evicted. Like, these things all have long-term repercussions on the psyche and the psychology of marketing in general.
So
right?
here's the
Go for it.
marketing question. Here's the sales question. Mr. Homeowner, let me ask you a question. I just did ask you a question, so let me ask you two questions. The first question I already asked you was, let me ask you a question. The second question is, where do you think home prices are going? Up or down? Right? If you think home prices are going down, should you wait till after the home prices go down before you sell, or should you sell now before the home prices drop? Or if you think home prices are going up, then you need to bring that loan current and you need to start making that payment. Which one is it?
Well, Fred, I know that my neighbor next door is selling their house for $500,000. Neighbor across the street sold theirs 6 months ago for $500,000. And there's one right around the corner that sold for $500,000.
Okay, that doesn't change my question. And you know, I'm obviously not this direct, but my question was, what do you think is going to happen to housing prices in the next 12 months?
Well, and this is, and I've talked to Terrell and I've talked to a lot of people about this. Let me jump out of character. Homeowners really believe that their equity is static. They don't believe in, here's your word of the day, Terrell. They don't believe in the spindrift. They don't. That's very real. I do not believe this guy or any other person who is selling or buying or whatever, that they don't believe in the spindrift. They don't believe in what's happening as it's plowing through them. They believe that that this is all static, that this is not going to end. Now they're starting to hear about words like recession, right? And maybe this guy has heard the words, and the reason he's being affected right now is because he just happened to be first in line. they really are cleaning out the pipelines if you're dragging deals like this out. I mean, this is, or it got sold to a servicer, or he did. I'll tell you probably how he got caught. He, his insurances probably finally caught up to him, right? When they restarted everything, people, that's how they used to find out about the B of A loans and the countrywide loans. It happened because people had either property taxes or they had insurance payments they didn't make. And I'm going to bet those are in the rears with this person too, which triggers an event, And guess what? You haven't made a payment to us in 11 years. What, did you get the house for free? Did you win the lottery? Like, I want that deal. And I'm not going to lie, back in 2007, 8, 9, and even 10, I used to explain about that countrywide B of A loophole that was happening in real time. Saw it a lot. All you really had to do was keep paying your insurance and your property tax. And because the switch out from countrywide to B of A was so bad, that his story and his situation, there are people living in houses right now without paying a dime of rent who have equity, which is even more mind-blowing, right? Because they've waited out the market for so long. And this is all because of the cycles of real estate going up and down. And it really does come down to you, Fred, or, Terrell, or anybody else being able to explain that in a simplistic manner, even to a brilliant person. Met lots of brilliant people, met lots of smart people. They, in my opinion, are harder people to break on topics because they can't believe that those situations are happening. We're going to take some quick questions offline. For those of you that are watching this on Facebook, we really do appreciate you watching. Go to Home Advocates, sign up, and you can get access to all our exclusive documents and things that will make your life easier and make you housing recession proof.